Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in for today's session. We are just waiting for the educators to join in. Once they are here, we will start with the session.
ప్యానలిస్ట్ అయితేనే కనిపిస్తాయి.
Neha, could you please make the educator the present? Yeah, Puran, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
Yeah, Puran, you have the presenter access. We will start at exactly 1:10. Okay?
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? I'm glad to see you all here. So we have delayed this meeting by 10 minutes so that you have an opportunity for you to settle down and begin this properly. So I'm going to thank Neha for allowing this to happen, for setting this up. So we'll begin from here. If you have any problems, please feel free to also send your questions in the Q&A section below. You should be able to see all the question answers, or you can send your queries to your Spock, and the Spock will be able to pass the query to us, and we should be able to answer it immediately. Okay. So Neha, I have a request. Can you please also make co-mentor one of the panelists, please?
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes, Purana, I'm adding.
Thank you so much. So let's begin, guys. So before we start, right, I just wanted to have a small recollection of what we did. Okay, let's quickly summarize first verbally, and then later on a little bit of code. So let's quickly summarize what we have done earlier. So broadly speaking, we are trying to learn object-oriented programming. Okay, so I'm going to share my desktop now, and you should be able to see the course contents.
Yeah,
So
Purana, sorry for the disturbance. Just wanted to confirm if she has already joined because I can't see him in the attendees list.
just a second. It's called Co. It's called Co Space Mentor. He's already there.
Let me check.
Capital CO. Wait.
There is only 2 attendees with the C alphabet.
Okay, just give me a second. Yeah, sorry about that, Neha. Looks like he was hopping out of the meeting again for some reason.
No
He'll
issues,
be,
I'll keep a track of it. Once he's
yeah,
here, I will add him.
yeah. Just it will take just a few more minutes if you can
Sure, no
just bear
issues. No
for
issues.
us. I'm sorry about that. So let's begin. So guys, I hope you can still hear me and see me. So let's continue from there where we left off. So here we are. What we did last time, I think, was very clear. We wanted to revise Python a little bit, and we wanted to see what are the problems that we will face when trying to use Python or any other programming language, actually, but specifically Python. How we have problems when we are trying to build our e-commerce application. So, what is e-commerce application? Basically, we are trying to build our own uh, application which looks like Amazon.com or Flipkart or Mintra or one of these things. We are trying to build our application, but from a very small way. So in the real world also, when somebody built Amazon or Flipkart or Mintra or all of these e-commerce applications, right? When in the real world also, we actually use object-oriented programming. So we actually use object-oriented programming. So earlier at the end of the first lesson, we took a look. This was the summary of object-oriented programming, but before that, I think uh, you know, this was the code that was there. So if I'll copy the code so that you can see it better. Yeah. So these were the global variables, and then we have a method. We have a method, and we have two more methods. Uh, One method is called purchase mobile, which takes the price and brand. The other is called purchase shoe, which takes the price, but this time it's taking material. These are the two different parameters that these two methods are taking. And the return mobile and the return shoe do not take any parameters, but they rely on the global variables. So you know what functions are, you know what parameters are. I think you have seen all of these things, and then you try to buy a mobile, a shoe, and a mobile, and then we tried to return a mobile. That's where we were at in the first lesson. And then it says the total price for mobile is 80. The total price for shoe is 210 because it's a 10% increase, for the 5% increase, and for mobile, okay, you can see what is happening here. So for the mobile, we are giving a discount. You remember this code? So that was what was happening earlier. So then we have a summary of object-oriented programming. So this is just a revision of what we did last time. Okay. So with our current style of programming, we quickly run into complications when we try to simulate real-world scenarios like purchasing and returning a product. Okay. So we found out what are all the reasons, and then we realized that all mobiles have a price and brand as its data, and purchase and return as its behavior. Okay, all shoes have price and material, not price and brand as its data, and purchase and return also as its behavior. Okay, so we need a way of programming which allows us to club together the data and the behavior so that it becomes easier to code real world scenarios. Okay, so what's happening here? We are trying to code real world scenarios, and we are trying to use Python to do it, and we are seeing what the problems are. So that was the summary of the first lesson. And moving on to the next one, we have object oriented programming basics. Here we went through a lot of these things, right? We went through the object oriented programming approach. Okay, so we talked about what are the characteristics and what are the behavior, and then we try to understand what is a class, what is an object, and then we tried building our own classes. This is the simplest class you can make. This is how you initialize a class. This is how you initialize a class since this has no constructors. So you remember what constructors are. Constructors are methods that look like this. Okay, and I can say this is a constructor, and then I can say pass. Okay, so here inside the constructor, we should definitely have self. I think that is definitely something that we should do. So that's the code, and here, so you should be able to run this code. Run this code. You have to indent your code correctly. If this one is supposed to be inside of def, so it cannot be here, it has to be here. I think those are definitely things that you should try to do. So now when I'm creating and I'm trying to print the ID for the first mobile and ID for the second mobile, it does print them, but we are having a constructor. Now if I make the constructor, if I add something to this constructor like print inside mobile constructor, you remember what will happen? So it says inside mobile constructor, because of line number 8, we are creating those classes, and then we are printing the IDs of those classes. So that's what is happening here. So we know what IDs are, and we know what objects are, we know what behaviors are. And let's continue with our example. I think we have also understood what is an attribute. You know what is an attribute. So if I try to create just mobile 1, and if I print mobile mob1 dot price, if I try to print that, it says mobile object has no attribute price. But now what I can do is very simple. I can add that attribute mob1 dot let's say price equal to something like that. Okay, I save that, and if I run this program, it says inside the mobile constructor, and then it's just inside the mobile constructor because I'm building that object here, and then I'm printing the price of it. One more way of doing this is by giving that this is self dot price equal to, let's say, something like that, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now if I remove this, I'm just creating this object here, and then just we are printing this price. Let's try to run this code again. You know what is happening now? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 got printed. Why? Because now we have its own attribute. If we have this attribute, and if I want to pass that attribute, let's say I want to give that attribute while creating that object itself, let's say I'm creating this object like this. So I should be able to accept that parameter also, some parameter 1, and then I can give this as parameter 1. So now this parameter 1 is the price. So if I save this now and if I run this, it says 8765 because I'm printing the mobile on dot price, and that attribute is now created while creating the class itself. So this is just a quick revision of what the attributes are. You know that we can make this a private one also. If I make this private, and if I try to access this one, it will fail. It does not have the attribute underscore underscore price. One way to do it is you can say mobile one dot underscore name of the class underscore price. You can do that. Now it will print it, but this is a bad way to do it. You should not do it. So what you should do, this is a private variable. It's a private variable. How can you access it? You can have a method for it. You can say def get price and then write return self dot underscore underscore price. And then you can say for this you can say get price. You can just call that method. This is called a getters method, or what is it called? You remember? Okay, we'll see it. So mob1 dot get price. We have to give it self also because it's a method. You remember? That's why it is saying the arguments does not match. It says 8765 or whatever number I give. 768 because I'm able to get the private variable. So this is what you remember. So these are called methods and these are called this is called the constructor. These are called the parameters and this is called the attributes. If you put a double underscore, these are called private attributes, and finally you know what static attributes are. So static stuff can be put here. I can do something like discount is equal to something 67%, let's say. So I can keep a static attribute like that. And how do you access a static attribute? You can access a static attribute by saying something like this. See? So without even using, even if I do not create any object, I just create the class and I just print the static attribute, it should simply work. To simply work because this is at a class level. So these are all things that we have done last time. So we have talked about class and object, we have talked about reference variables, we have talked about the basics, we have talked about abstraction, and we have talked about abstraction and encapsulation, and we have talked about collections of objects. Okay, so we have talked about these things, and we have also talked about the static view. So the next set of things that we are going to talk about are the class relationships. So we're going to jump right into here. So this was a quick revision of what we did until last time. So I hope I've managed to spend some 10-15 minutes on the revision part. Now let's understand what are the relationships. What is the relationship between two things? Okay. So far we know how to create classes. Okay. So again, let's do a quick review. How do I create a class? I can simply create a class by giving class and class name. And that's it. And if I say pass, that's it. It will simply work. This is the simplest class. If I want to create another class uh, called my class, then and I want to give it a constructor, then this is how I can do it. Then some parameter. And what do I do? I can say some attribute self dot some attribute equal to some parameter. So this is the typical way you can build a class which is having a constructor, and this constructor is now parameterized. So you know what I am talking about. So far we have done good revision. Now we know that when I create this class, right? I know that this class and this class, they are not related to each other. If I want, I can create another class, another class, and this one I can say has a only one static variable called some static variable equal to some 89. Okay, let's say I put some static variable and I say pass. So now what is this code? This is very simple, right? So you know what is happening here. So we are simply creating lots of other interesting classes. We know that this class and this class and this class, they're not related to each other. So now what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about the class relationships, how classes are related to each other. So in real life, objects interact with other objects. Okay. So why are we talking about real life? Because we want to build we want to build our programs in such a way that we are able to solve real world problems. So what is Flipkart or what is Amazon or what is all these e-commerce websites? So all these e-commerce websites are those websites which are basically it's an online representation of a shop, right? So what does a shop have? A shop has employees. A shop has uh, stock. A stock has lots of things. So we know that all of these things are there. How to represent that on a computer is called object-oriented programming. But when we create objects, just like in the real world, objects interact with other objects in the same way. In the object-oriented world also, objects will interact with other objects. So, for example, a customer object buys a mobile object. Okay. So customer object buys a mobile object. So far, we have created classes which do not interact with other objects. Now we'll take a look at how to create objects which have some relationship with other objects. So I'm glad, Avinash, that you have raised your hand. So please make sure that you're asking your questions in the question answer section. We have ample time for this today, so we will be happy to answer any of your queries that you have there. So I've just opened the question answers panel. So I don't see any of you have asked any questions. So I will still wait for you to ask any questions if you want. Now, so now we will take a look at how to create those objects which have some relationship with other objects. Okay. So some relationships objects are related to other objects. This is the problem statement. In your opinion, what is the best way to describe the relationship between these two classes? Okay, take a look at these classes. Customer and address. I want to give you 1 minute. Think about this. Think how they're related to each other. If you are having a shop that maintains customers and customer addresses, right? How would you maintain it? And how would you create a Python program to maintain customers and to maintain addresses? Okay, so this is what we want to do. So let's try to understand and think about this. I'm going to give you 1 minute now. Okay, so I hope you got the answer. So, what's the best way to describe the relationship between these two classes? It is obviously every customer. Is it that every customer is an address, or is every address is a customer? We are just trying to explore whether each of them is a super class of each other or a subclass of each other. I mean, we are trying to understand whether each of them belongs to the other kind. Okay, is a customer a kind of an address, or is an address a kind of a customer? No, that's not true. They are not similar to each other. Okay, so is it true that a customer has an address, or is it true that the address has a customer? Which is correct? So I think the answer is every customer has an address. I think that is the right one. So I want you to think about the next one now. So in your opinion, what is the best way to describe the relationship between these two classes? Okay, a product and a mobile. Think about the context. Context will be, I think, in a shop. A shop has products, a shop has mobiles, a shop has basically product objects and mobile objects. How are they related to each other, man? Just think about this. Yes. So, what's the best way to describe the relationship between these two classes? A product and a mobile. So, is a product a mobile? So, every product is a mobile, is it true? No. But is every mobile a product? Yeah, maybe that is true. That is true. This is correct. So, every product has a mobile. Does every product have a mobile? Is there like another product possible? Can I have a shoe? Does that have a mobile? No, I don't think so. And does mobile have a product? I don't think they have each other, right? Does a mobile have a product? I think a mobile is a product, right? I think a mobile is a product. That's the right way to think about it. Okay. So, what's the best way to describe the relationship? Think about this. Okay. The first example that we saw was a customer and address, and the next example that we see is the product and mobile. Again, now let's try to look at the same example again. The customer and address. The first example. Okay. What is the best way to describe the relationship again? Think about this. How many can each of them have? Think about the answer below. Okay, I think you are already thinking about this. So, a customer can have only one address, or a customer can have many addresses. So, if it's an e-commerce system, a customer can have many addresses, but I think they will have only one primary address, right? And an address can have only one customer, an address can have many customers. That is also true. An address can have many customers, right? I think my family, for example, my mother probably a customer of Amazon. My father is also probably a customer of Amazon. They have the same address, but they're two different customers. Okay. Another example would be uh, I am a customer and I have my office address also, or my school address, or my college address, and I have my home address. I have multiple addresses, right? So think about this. So how many kinds of relationships are there? That's what we are talking about. Now, again, it's the same question between customer and addresses, but think about whether they can exist without each other or not. Can a customer exist without address? can an address exist without customer? Think about it. Think about it. Okay, I think you are getting this more or less. Is it true that the customer has address, but if the customer is no more, then the address is also no more? Or if the customer is no more, still the address can continue to exist? Those are the two options. Think about it. And if we go to the next example now, again, same way, describe the relationship between these two. Let's talk about a college and a department. Same question like earlier. Can you think about this? Yeah. So a college has a department. Okay, a college has a department, that is true. And if the college is closed, in both the cases, until here the sentence is the same, then the department also gets closed or the department still continues to run. So that's a good question, right? So why are we talking about this again? Let's say we are creating a system which is going to create a software where it has an object of college and it has an object of department. Okay, then how do you create that object-oriented programming system? How are those classes related to each other? So if the college is there, only then the department can be there, or the department can exist without the college also. In the previous example, we were talking about the same question, but in the context of customer and address. So now we want to talk about it in the different context. We want to talk about the context of college and department. Can you think about what is happening here? And I think here is a summary of what is happening here. So basically, there are three types of relationships that anything can have. There are three types of relationships that objects can have with each other. Okay, the first one is called inheritance. The second one is called aggregation. And the third one is called composition. Don't worry about the names, but you will gradually get it. So, what is inheritance? Inheritance is like this. Every mobile, in the example that we have seen earlier, every mobile is a product, right? Every mobile is a product, which means not every product is a mobile. Okay, there are products which are not mobiles also, but every mobile is a product. So this is what is called inheritance. Inheritance is when one object is a type of another object. Okay, when one object is a type of another object. So I think the most common example people will give you is uh, a phone. A phone is a type of electronics object. A cat, a cat is a type of an animal. Okay, so inheritance is like that. So when one object is a type of another object. Aggregation, I think the word aggregation, most of you will know the answer to this. What is the meaning of the word aggregate or aggregation? Aggregation means to bring something together. Okay. So aggregation is when two things are together, just they're together. So when one object owns another object, okay, one object is ownership. Okay, this is a type of another object. Here it is the owning of another object, but they both have an independent life cycle. If they both have an independent life cycle, then it is called aggregation. And if they both have the same life cycle, it is the composition. Okay, independent or dependent, I'll tell you what's the difference. So aggregation, let's talk about inheritance. We have finished talking about inheritance. We're talking about aggregation and composition. And what are we talking about? We're talking about relationships between objects, right? So when two objects are related to each other, they can be related through inheritance. They can be related through aggregation also. So aggregation means when one object and other object are there, but they can exist independently. Like customers can exist and addresses can exist. There can be a customer with zero addresses or one address also. There can be an address with zero customers or one customers or five customers also. Okay, so that is what is called aggregation. And composition would be when both of them are together. So here I told you the example of an address. Customer has an address. Even if the customer is no more, there can be other customers in that address. So address continues to exist. But here, a college, if the college closes, then the department is automatically closed. So that is the meaning. That is the meaning of a composition. Okay. So two objects. So in here, mobile and product are related through inheritance. Customer and address are related through aggregation, and college and department are related through composition. So if you spend your, if you just, it's simple concept, but it makes a lot of your programming easier if you understand these concepts. Okay. It's also true that each object may related to multiple objects at the same time. An object can be related to another object, right? For example, a shoe is also a product. A mobile is a product, but a shoe is also a product. Okay. And a customer can have many addresses, right? A customer can have an address, okay, but a customer can have many addresses. And a department can have many employees also. So a college has a department and the department has employees. So that is the kind of thing that composition does. Okay. So a college has a department has employees. So if the college is no more, then the employees are no more. But if the college is there and the department is no more, still the employees are no more. So that is also one way of composition. Okay. A child may have many siblings, so on and so on. So in this course, we are going to take a look only at inheritance and aggregation. So we are going to take a look at inheritance and aggregation. Composition, we are not doing in this course, but if you are really interested, you should be able to quickly and very easily learn about what is composition. Okay. So that is a quick summary of what is class relationships. We are now going to talk about aggregation. So if you go to class relationships, right, we were talking about inheritance, aggregation, and composition. Now we're going to talk first about aggregation. But since we are going to talk only about inheritance and aggregation alone, once we are done with aggregation, we will talk about inheritance. Okay, so that's it for now. So I'm going to give you a small break right now. So the time is about 1:45 to 2. So we'll meet at 2 o'clock to continue our session. Okay, so please make sure that you are asking me your queries just like last time. You were very interactive very last time. So make sure that you are also asking your queries this time also, so that I can answer all your questions and everybody is clear, so that we can all finish the course and get our certification. So I'm going to join you in 15 minutes from now. Please get yourself refreshed and ask any doubts if you have. Thank you so much. Okay, so welcome back. This is okay. So now let's start the next part of the session. This is going to be very interesting. So we have just talked about the various kinds of class relationships possible. We have talked about inheritance, we have talked about aggregation, and then we have talked about composition. Now we're going to go a little deeper into aggregation. So let's talk about aggregation. So I hope you remember what a class diagram is. Okay. So if you just recap, this is the class diagram. This is the name of the class. These are the attributes. These are the methods, including the constructor methods, and the plus or minus signs will include the access specifier, which means whether it's a private one, these three are private, these four are private, and these are public. Class means public. So if a class A owns class B, then A is said to aggregate class B. Class A is said to aggregate class B. It's known as a has-a relationship. Has A. So in our shopping app, in our shopping application, we are trying to say that every customer has an address. Okay, a customer has at max one address. So first, let's take a look at them independently. Okay, so this is the code. I hope you understand. Let's take a minute for you to understand this. So these are the class diagrams for the objects that we are going to create, or for the classes that we are going to create. From these classes, we can create more objects. So these are the classes. So these are the attributes, these are the methods. Now, if we try to implement the same thing in terms of Python, right? So this is the same thing. Customer has name, age, and phone number, and it has three methods. So those are the three attributes, and those are the three methods. And here also, these are the four attributes, and that is the one more method. Okay, so this is where we are at. So we can run this code. Even if you run this code, nothing is happening because we have a class declaration and we have another class declaration. Nothing else. We're just declaring classes. But I hope you are able to see. Make sure you are able to understand this code. You will see that the name, age, and phone number, they are private variables, and these four are also private variables. So this is the code that you are taking a look at. So now we are going to talk about what is aggregation specifically, but how to represent aggregation in a class diagram is using this diamond diagram. So you will see that instead of three things here, four things here, we also have four things here. You'll see that we have address here, and you will see the diamond sign on the left side, which means customer is aggregating address. Okay, so if you want the customer class to aggregate the address class, okay, if you want the customer class to aggregate the address class, and thereby owning the address class and having full access to it, which means customer will now have full access to the address class because this is the owner through aggregation. Then the customer must have additional attribute for address. The customer must have additional attribute for address as shown below. This is the additional attribute for address. So now if you want to implement the same thing in code, what you'll have to do, simply one more thing, you have to add address. And because we are adding that address, you have to add the address in the constructor also. Same old things are there. Same old things are there. So if you want to see the code in here also, you should be able to see. So for private variables, address is also private, but this one, the constructor has changed now, and this one has changed. This one has nothing has changed here. So we're just creating two classes. This is the class one, this is the class two. We're just creating those classes. Okay. So what did we do? We just try to follow whatever the class diagram we're creating, and we're trying to create those classes. Okay, just this extra one, and therefore because of this address, one more address. So here's the plan. Now we can create address objects like this. Let's say this is the address object, this is the address object, ADD1, ADD2. So ADD1 looks like this. This is the address object. and it looks like door, street, and pin code. These are the three values. And door is 567, and street is 6th lane, and 82006 is the second address. So we create two address objects. Then we create two customer objects also by using the customer constructor. So the name, the age, and the phone. Okay, the name, age, and phone, and then we are having address also, but it is none. Okay, so we can say that the customer one has a name of Jack, has an address of 24, has a phone number of 1234, and has an address of none. Okay, none is a special word that we use in Python to represent that it is also an object, but there's nothing there. It's an object, but there's nothing there. No object. Okay, so that is the way we do it in Python. So here also, then we create another customer, Jack and Jane, 24 and 25, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Both of them have no addresses. But earlier we created ADD1 and ADD2, the addresses, the two addresses. Now what do? We assign the address like that. So what do? We create address 1 and address 2 first, and then in the constructor of customer 1, we add the address 1. And the construction of customer 2, we add address 2. So here what happens? This customer 1 has all these things, but also has now an address. This customer 2 also has that other address. So this is an example of an aggregation. Okay. So you will see this in code very quickly now. So these are the things that you have to try as an activity. Okay. So you should try and type this out. Okay. So make sure you try this activity. But basically, we have this variable called cust1, cust2, another variable called address1 and address2, and we're trying to assign the cust1 address to here. Okay. So see, you can do cust1 dot address dot door. And you can play with this activity. Okay. So this is the aggregation activity. Make sure you're trying this out so that you can understand it better. But if I'm trying to access this, can you see that this is getting highlighted? So this is how we can access it. So if I say cust2 dot address dot street, see, can you see that this is getting highlighted here? So this is how you can access it. So make sure you're practicing so that you understand how to access them. Now, accessing the aggregated attribute. Okay, accessing the aggregated attribute. So what is the aggregated attribute here? This is the attribute and this is the aggregated attribute. So how do we access it? We can simply access it by saying address dot door number, address dot street, address dot pin code, because it has door number, street, and pin code. So I'll just show it to you in code again. So we have a customer, but this time these are not private variables. Please note that these are not private variables. And we have view details and update details methods. In the view details method, we are trying to print these things. Name, age, and phone number from self, and door number, street, and address from self.address, which is this one, which is going to be the parameter, which is going to be the one that we create. So here's what we did. We created two addresses. We added address 1 to customer 1 and viewed the details. And we added address 2 to the customer and viewed the details. Okay. So let's update this. Let's run this code. Yeah. Let's try to understand what happened in this code. I'm going to minimize this slightly a little bit so that you can see the entire code. So we have this address. Okay, we have this customer class and we have this address class. We create a new address object. We create a new address object. We create add1 and add2, two address objects. And then we create a customer 1 and give it the address 1 object. Okay, and then we view the details first, and then we update the details and view the details again. View details, update them, and view it again. We are updating them with address 2. So what does it do? The constructor, it sets the address to be the address. So the attribute address is set here. And what does update address do? It takes the new address object and sets the self.address. So self.address gets set here. Okay. So I hope you're seeing what is happening here. So let's run this code now. So if I run this code, you will see that in the first one, the address is 123 fifth lane, and here in the second one is 567 sixth lane. Okay, so that is exactly what is happening here. So I hope you understand. So two classes, you can change the internal attributes, and this is an example of aggregation. So you can the address object is available in all the methods of the customer class, just like regular attributes. Okay, so that is the example of it. Now we're going to this is the next slide. So private variables can be accessed outside of the class. So they cannot be accessed outside of a class. Okay, so private variables, of course, you know that they cannot be accessed outside of a class. This is true even in aggregation. The owning class cannot access the private variables. For example, let's say all of these are public variables, but in here, all of them are private variables. So you see that underscore underscore in front of them. Now, if they're private, we are trying to access the private variables of address, private variables of address, all in this statement in line number 10. So if you take that code and run it, so customer is trying to access these things. These are private variables inside the address, and we are trying to create that address, and we are trying to view details. Okay, we are trying to create an address, we are trying to create a customer, and then we are trying to do the view details. It has no attribute called door underscore underscore door number. It does not have an attribute called underscore underscore door number. Is it correct? Yeah, it does not have it. This is the first one to fail. That's why it is saying that. If this one is somehow, if I remove this, then address street will fail, no? So customer street will fail. So each of them are private variables, and you are having the pair, even though this is aggregating here, it does not have access to the private variables. So I think we have stopped the question earlier. So you remember what is the getters and setters are called? The getters are called accessors, and the setters are called mutators. Okay. So just a hint for you, just a revision for you. So once we have the getters and setter methods, we can start accessing the private variables also. So one more change that we can do to our code is very simple. Instead of so the address has all these variables as private variables, right? So we have three private variables: door number, street, and pin code. So now what do we do? For door number, street, and pin code, we just say get door number, get street, and get pin code. And then set door number, set street, and set pin code. We have the getters and setters. And finally, we have the old one, which is the update address. This was already there. Okay. So if we use getters and setters, now the customer can access the private variables using the getter, and using the getter again. So this is how the access can happen using the getters. Okay, so you should be able to understand now how the getters and setters work. So just to prove it to you, so let me run this code now. You will see that when I'm printing view details of this customer, I get the name, the age, and the phone number. Along with that, I get the address, the street, and all that stuff. So I get the door number, the street, and the pin code. So that's door number, that's the street, and that's the pin code. So the street is fifth grade. Okay, so here is the street. So I think you're getting this now. So I hope this is starting to make a little more sense. Python is really very easy. So of all the programming languages in the world, I think it is supposedly one of the very easiest ones. So please make sure you are taking advantage of this session. So this was the code that we copied. So I think you are getting an idea. So we just put the customer details using the setter methods, and now you can access the private variables of your aggregating child. Now there are different other kinds of dependencies. So far I think until here. So where are we? Let me scroll here. So far until here we are looking at aggregation, but there are there are two other dependencies also. There are two other dependencies. One is called the dependency via formal parameter. The dependency via formal parameter is, see, we have a customer and we have a constructor for it, and then we have something here. We have a method called purchase, which is taking an object because that object has an attribute. This is an object. So payment dot type is taking an object. Okay. And where is that object? The object is of the type payment. So let's see that code. We are creating a payment object. We are creating a customer object. And then c.purchase, and we're giving it the payment object. In the purchase, we are expecting a payment object, and payment object has one attribute called type. And the type can be, in this case, it's card, but it can be e-wallet or anything else. Okay, so that is the code. So let me show you the code elaborately again in this view. So I hope you are able to see. So that's the customer, that's the purchase, that's the payment. This payment is a class. We're creating a payment object and then passing the payment object to a method. Okay, so passing the payment object to a method. Sometimes, okay, a class may depend on another class for some of its use. Okay, this is a dependency. This is not a strict relationship, and therefore it will not appear. It will not appear in the class diagram. Okay, in the below code, for example, the customer class depends on payment object, the purchasing. The customer object depends on the payment object for purchasing. Here, payment is a local variable. Okay, it's just a local variable. Like we are creating a variable and sending it, right? It's a local variable, and it's not an attribute. Okay, it's not an attribute, and therefore it will not appear in the class diagram. It won't appear in the class diagram. Okay, but remember that this is also one kind of dependency. So customer is dependent on the payment object or payment class. One more kind of dependency. Okay, one more kind of dependency. It's called via a local object. Okay, so earlier we saw that the object was being passed as a parameter to a method. Okay, now we can also create an object inside of a method also. Okay, so earlier we took an object from outside as a parameter. Now we can create an object inside also. This also is a weaker dependency, and it does not show in the class diagram. So there are two weak dependencies. One is dependency via formal parameter, and the other is dependency via local object. Okay, this is also a weak dependency and does not reflect in the class diagram. Okay, so and therefore sometimes we may access the static variables of other class directly. Okay, we may access the static variables of another class also, right? So all those are weaker relationships, and we do not do. So those are all dependency via local object. So let's understand this code. You cannot run the code that looks like this. You cannot run it on the Springboard platform, but you should definitely try it on any other pages that you will have to run the code. Just copy that code from there and run it. So here, what did we do? We have a customer. We have a constructor, a very simple constructor, and then we have a calculate bill, which returns the final bill by multiplying the bill with tax1 dot tax details. So here you see that we are creating a tax object. Can you see it, line number 10? So we see that the customer is creating a tax object. And where's the tax object? The tax object is here. So this is the tax object. The tax object is being used by the customer object. Now what do? I create a customer object and print customer1 dot calculate bill. And calculate bill is using the external tax object. So this is also a dependency, but this is not aggregation. This is a very weak dependency. So it says 500 because 100, it gets multiplied by the tax bracket, which is, it returns 5 because it's a student. So if you don't understand this code, please make sure that you're spending a little more time with the details. It's a very simple code, just 20-25 lines of code. And because it's a student, for student it's 5, and therefore for 100 into 5, it will be 500. So I think that's it for as far as this chapter goes. So once we move on to the next session, you'll have a quiz. Make sure you finish this quiz because you want to be able to, you have to finish this quiz for you to be able to finish this course. And once the course is finished, you'll be able to happily get your certification. So again, there are lots of other exercises of using how to use on how to use the class diagram. So make sure you are playing with it. Infosys Springboard is really done a good job in setting this up so that it is very, very easy for you. So make sure that you are able to utilize its full potential. Make sure you're trying out all these exercises. This is also a tryout, which means you have to try this out and play with this code. So make sure that you are trying to uh, what do I say? Yeah, make sure you're playing with this code and try to understand what all these things are. So then we move on to the next part, which is the assignment set number 3 and further reading set number 3. And then finally, we are going to talk about inheritance a little bit more. So inheritance, we're going to talk about this. Uh, just give me a second. Yeah. So I think we are going to start a little bit of inheritance, but so far this is the class relationship session. Okay. So this is a very big session, and I think we are going to move on to inheritance. So I'm going to ask you to try to think about the things that we have taught so far, and ask me any doubts, please. So we're going to let this happen for a few more minutes. I'm going to allow you to ask your doubts for the next 5 minutes, and then we can continue from there.
Hi, Pooran, you are on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. So since nobody is having any queries right at this point, so we will move on to the next part of this session. So we're going to talk a little bit about inheritance. So let's continue from there. Relationships. We've taken a look at aggregation. I think that was what we were talking about. So this was the class relationships one. We were taking a look at aggregation. We have taken a look at aggregation. Now we are going to talk a little bit. So what is inheritance? We're going to do only a little bit of this today. We are not going to finish it off. So I think we're going to spend some time on getting the details of this inheritance correctly. So let's talk about inheritance. Okay. So our running example was always this. Our example was that we were trying to build an e-commerce application, an online shopping application. Okay. So let us say our online shopping application, we want to build a different type. We want to sell different types of phones. Okay, we want to be able to distinguish between different kinds of phones. Let's give them names. These are called the feature phones and these are called the smartphones. Okay, so feature phones will be the regular phones that are normally used, and smartphones are those phones that are we typically are using nowadays more commonly. But there are still people who are switching back to feature phones and trying to use feature phones for their day-to-day activities. Either ways, let's say that our shopping app wants to sell different types. Now, let's try to make this better. Yeah. Let's try to understand these selling these phones from the computer perspective, from the application perspective, in the Python perspective. So if you remember earlier, these are what we call the class diagrams. Okay, so these are the class diagrams. So you remember that this is the name of the class, these are the attributes of the class, attributes of the class, these are the methods of the class, including the constructor, and the minuses and pluses are basically telling you whether these variables are private or public. So below are the class diagrams for both the classes, for the smartphone and the feature phone. I want you to take a look at this. I want to zoom in here. Take a look at this and tell me how much similar they are to each other and how much different they are from each other. So just take your time. I am going to spend a few more minutes. I'm going to let you spend a minute on this. Okay. So you will see that the brand, price, and camera are same for both of them, and buy and return are the same for both of them. Everything else is different. So what is different is OS, RAM, battery, init, and insure. Here, type, init, and exchange. These are all the differences between the smartphone and the feature phone. So I think in this slide, you should be able to see this much better. We can see that both classes have a lot in common because both are basically phones, right? Both are ultimately phones. They're basically phones, and each is just a special type of phone. And because of that, they have a lot of things in common. So you see that these are the common attributes, and this is the common behavior that we expect when we are creating an online shopping application. So these are the things that happen when we try to create an online shopping application, and you're seeing that these are the common things that our smartphone and feature phone can have. And since both the classes are of the type phone, we can create a phone class with the common attributes and make those two classes inherit those attributes. Okay, so this is the concept of inheritance. So all the things that are common for a feature phone and a smartphone that we were seeing in the earlier slide, you can move it onto a special class. Okay, and all the behavior that is common also, like buy and return, you can move it to a special class along with the constructor. Okay, and make these classes inherit the behavior. So a feature phone has type, but it also has all of these. So a smartphone has OS, RAM, battery, and insure, but it also has all of these. So now this one looks similar to the earlier code here. Instead of so all the common ones, you're taking it out and putting it in a mobile, in a phone class, and then smartphone and feature phone inherit from that. So phone, smartphone, and feature phone they inherit from. Very nice. You can see this dabba here. Earlier, the one that you have seen was a diamond. Diamond would stand for aggregation, but here it is a triangle, and the direction of the triangle will indicate who is inheriting from whom. So you will see that feature phone and smartphone are inheriting, both are inheriting from phone. Okay, so when a class inherits from another class, okay, so these are the classes and these are inheriting from another class, then they are said to have an inheritance relationship. They are said to have an inheritance relationship. So phone and feature phone have an inheritance relationship. Phone and smartphone also have an inheritance relationship. These don't have that relationship. The class which is inheriting is called a child or a sub or a derived class. The child is inheriting is called a child class or a subclass or a derived class, and the one that is getting inherited is called the parent class or the base class or the super class. Okay, so the words are like this: child, parent, or sub and super, or derived and base. These are the words that we typically use. Inheritance is also called a is-a relationship. Is-a. Earlier we were taking a look at a has-a relationship. Okay. Earlier we were taking a look at a has-a relationship. Now we are taking a look at a is-a relationship. Okay. So in our example, the feature phone is inheriting the phone, and smartphone is also inheriting the phone. Okay, both of them are inheriting the phone class. So a smartphone is a phone and a feature phone is a phone. Okay, that's what it's called. That's what is a relationship. That's what inheritance is. So phone is the parent class, and feature phone and sub phone are the derived classes. Okay, so phone is the parent class. Parent class means parent class or super class or base class, and derived class means child class or subclass or derived class. Okay, so that is how it is. It's the same one. We're going to move to the next. Okay, so of course there are three main advantages to inheritance. uh, we can keep the common properties in a single place. We keep all the common properties in a single place. Thus, any changes that need to be made need not be repeated. I'm so sorry. So all the common properties of smartphone and feature phone can be placed inside the mobile, inside the phone class, and we don't need to repeat ourselves, right? And therefore, inheritance allows us code reuse and thus saving us a lot of time. Okay. And of course, if you want to add a new type of phone later on, you can simply inherit the phone class instead of writing it from scratch. That's a good idea, right? So right now we have a smartphone and we have a feature phone. Let's say in the future we have one more phone which is uh, like a curving phone, which you can wear it like a watch. Or let's say in the future we have a flipped phone. Flipped phone means you remember, right? You know, it flips open. So different kinds of phones. You don't need to write all the base and the price and the model and all of that stuff. You don't need to write it again. You just simply inherit from the phone class, and this is now a flipped phone. Okay, so you can simply use inheritance. So there are a few things about independent classes and want to try it out. But I think we are going to stop here for today. And the next 10-15 minutes has been allocated to you for your doubts clarification session. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing now. And please feel free to ask any doubts now.
Hi everyone, you can post it in the Q&A part and Puran will respond accordingly, or I can, ask him the question. So please feel free to post it in the Q&A.
Yeah, even I have access to the Q&A section. I cannot contribute to it, but I can read from it. So please make sure you are asking your questions, guys, in the Q&A session. Every day, in every session, you're allocated roughly half an hour to 1 hour every day just for this doubts and clarifications session. So make sure that you're utilizing this time correctly. Yeah. So make sure you're asking your doubts, guys, because that we have almost come to the halfway part of the course. So which means that you are also halfway close to your certification. So I hope you are actually there and you are able to finish off your assessments and assignments and make some progress in the on the platform. Even if you have any queries on the platform, you can ask me. I should be happy to answer. I can show you how to use it. I can show you to you in various ways, even in terms of theme change, in terms of language change, all of these things I can help you. So please help. Please make sure you're asking me. Okay. So I have a question. We have a question from AM Jain. So they're asking whether they can access this session in the future. Uh, I think we are recording these sessions, Jain, and you will have an access to this. But I think uh, I let uh, I let Dimple maybe confirm this.
Yeah, Puran.
Yeah, just confirming. Like somebody was asking a query in the Q&A session, whether we can access these sessions in the future. So is
Yes,
it
to everyone, see, we have shown you a NM channel page, right? We will be putting the recordings there for your reference. Thank you, Deeba Lakshmi. So, Puran, we are getting really good feedback for you. Congratulations. So, but the only thing which is required from each one of you is Puran is teaching you in the best way possible, and we are making sure that everything, whatever is on the course, it is completed. Every module is completed, but you please do your homework also. Complete the assessments, complete the quizzes, and complete exercises. And please try to see, he demonstrates a lot of coding while he's doing it. So do it side by side, right? So in the next session, make sure your editor is also open while Puran is teaching, right? Thank you. Over to you, Puran.
Thank you so much, Dimple. That was really helpful. So I hope that answers your question, Jen. So I'm talking to AM Jen, but everybody who has this doubt, you can access this session in the channel once you are logged in with the right credentials that have been given to you. You should be able to access the exact session that has been covered. Devalakshmi, thank you so much, Devalakshmi. I was trying to do my best, but I would love to see a little more participation from your side if it is possible. I would like you to encourage all your batchmates and friends to see if you can, encourage each other and take advantage of this session because we're trying to go really slow and listen to every query that you have. So AP Tarani is asking, is there any time limit to complete the assignments? So is there a time limit to complete the assignments? The answer is yes, there is a time limit. You do not have infinite time to do this because we are and you are all enrolled into the Naan Mudhalvan program, and that has a upper limit. So you will get all the details in your emails already. You must have already gotten it. So make sure you're going through those documents, but there is a limit. There is a time limit to complete these assignments. But I'll be honest with you, these assignments overall also, if you sit right now and try to finish it off also, it will take you 20 hours maximum. And you have like 10 weeks to do it or 9 weeks to do it. So you have this huge advantage of time on your side. So the sooner you do it, the better it is, Taran. Okay, AM Jain says thank you so much. Thank you. I hope it was helpful. So Taran is asking, is there any time limit to complete the assignment? Okay, yeah, I think I've answered that question, right? There is a time limit, uh, but you should, you know, try to do it the sooner you can do it, the better it is. Okay, thank you, Tarani. Thank you, Tarani. I see that a lot of people are joining from their phones. If possible, please join from your laptops, like Dimple Madam is saying, right? If possible, if you join from the laptops, right? I'm going slow enough that you should be able to all follow along and ask any doubts live. Yeah, I'll be happy to take up any kinds of questions, guys. We'll be happy to answer it because the whole initiative from our side is to help you out and give you a better chance of whatever it is in the future. Okay, so we want you to be more confident in this area. That is not your core area, right? This is not you're not from maths background. You're from arts and sciences backgrounds, right? So this is not your core area, but Python again is very approachable. So since Python is approachable, we are trying to make it approachable for you. So see if you can take advantage of this. Okay. I think okay. Vinci is asking when we have to complete all the modules. Uh, I don't think I can give you the exact date. But Dimple, do we have an answer for that? Like when are we complete? When are they expected? When is the last date for them to finish and all the modules?
They can reach out to their NM spokes,
Okay.
and rest of the details will be shared over the mails.
Awesome. I think I'll repeat that. Vinci, you were asking. You can directly speak to your NM spokes, Naan Mudhalvan spokes. Spoke is your single point of contact, right? You can speak to your NM spokes, and you'll also receive all the details and all of this stuff in your emails that you're using for registering and signing. Oh, it's good to see so many queries. Please feel free to ask more. Okay. Looks like we have answered everybody's queries. Vinci is also saying thank you. So yeah, thank you too. Thank you for raising this up. I think a lot of people had this question, but they were not asking. So now that you have asked, I think it's much clearer. I see a lot of people have raised your hands also, like Dinesh Kumar and Monisha Saravanan. You have raised your hands. So if you also have any queries, I'll be happy to answer, or we are going to conclude this session now. Dinesh Kumar, you're not even connected to the to audio or video. So just still type. Monisha Saravanan, if you have any question, you should be able to ask now. Okay, I think we are done for this session. We have finished the content and we have adequately answered queries for you guys. Dimple, I think it's over to you now. You can take it up for the rest of the.
Sure, Poonam. So, thank you, everyone. I would request you to be there in the next session. I know this time it is a holiday, so we will be informing you regarding the next session. This Thursday, we are not going to have any session because it's a holiday. So, after next to next week, you will be having a session on Wednesday. Please join in time. Until the time, you have a lot of time to, go through all the topics that have been discussed over the sessions. Please complete it. Do not wait for the last date. See, we are going with the pace of the syllabus that have been given to you and for which you will be getting the credits. So please ensure that you are doing the exercises, the quizzes, and the assessments side by side. Please don't wait for the last day. It is always good. This language thing, I will tell you from all of our experiences, from Puran's, from mine, this cannot be learnt over a day. This needs practice, and please do it thoroughly. I can assure you, if you go with the way we are telling you to go, I'm sure by the end of this entire series, you will be a pro at Python. Python is not at all difficult. It's just it needs hard work and it needs dedication. So please do it, and all the best. Happy learning. Have a great weekend. I know it's a long one, right? But please keep learning. Okay. So thank you, Puran.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. In case you have any doubt, you please reach out to your NM spokes also, and you can write to our team at springboard-support@infosys.com.
Okay, I think we have one more query from somebody here.
This is Shiva.
Shiva is there. Shiva is there.
So, see, is this regarding this? You're talking about Friday, right? Holiday.
Okay. Sorry, Shiva. I will just give me a second. Give me a second. I will cross check.
Yeah, because the next session is at Friday for these
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. No, we don't have any session on Friday also.
Okay, that's what we want to confirm. Yeah.
Ha.
Awesome,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah.
So this is
So
good. You,
they have
please
a
go
lot
ahead.
of time to complete the things and do all the questions and whatever Puran has taught. Okay. So yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Puran. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, and hope you have a good learning time.
Thanks.